Hey, welcome to Loose Change. Still much better than the book version. And there is one, of course. Hi, I'm Jim Evans. Great to see you. And you'll be glad you joined us for what should be a really great show. I'm really looking forward to our guest, meeting with our guest here in just a moment. But first, what's been going on? We haven't talked in a while. Greg, as usual, I'm at home, laying around on the couch and the TV's on, goes in and out, and I wake up and I see what I think is a show on the Travel Channel. Then I look closer, and it's just the NBA on the Traveling Channel. You watch that, they got more steps than the Empire State Building. And that's in just one game. While we're on that subject, congratulations to both the Youngstown State men's and women's basketball teams. Just a super season and well done. A lot of energy down there around YSU Hoops, and that's really a great thing. And of course, as of the taping of the show, we're right in the thick of March Madness. Now, Greg, for the last few years, I haven't done a bracket, but this year, for whatever reason, I decided, hey, I'm gonna give it a shot. And I actually have it here with me. And well, heck, I'm gonna let you take a look at it and see what you think. Greg's gonna look at my bracket and tell me what he thinks. Oh, okay. Is that the way it's? All right then, let's move forward. We're moving forward into spring. And with that comes the time change. And these days, it brings on a little more responsibility because now we have to turn the clocks forward, and we also have to move the TikTok ahead an hour. So we have that to deal with, and a lot of folks can barely do that. But speaking of TikTok, I still chuckle about this, Greg, you might as well. Several weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that balloon that China sent over the country floated over top, and we had to shoot it down off the East Coast, and they said, it was nothing. And I'm like, think about that. China, it doesn't say much for you as a superpower when your espionage tactics are pretty much the same as Wile E. Coyote. It was an Acme balloon. You know what, Greg, they're talking about maybe shutting off TikTok here in the U.S. They're having congressional hearings, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Also, I just saw this, the Browns' Deshaun Watson was on a flight recently, and he just happenstance to sit next to Senator Congressman George Santos. And I thought, what an opportunity for both of them. They can double down on the frequent liar miles. Hey, we're going to take a break, and then joining us next is Coach George Abraham. Stick around right here on Loose Change. He'll be with us.
Supercharge your internet. Only Zoom Extreme from Armstrong combines unlimited data with whole home Wi-Fi at the fastest speeds possible. Zoom Extreme from Armstrong.
Welcome back. I'm Jim Evans, and I have the great pleasure to be joined by the co-host of Bottom Line Sports that you see right here on Armstrong, and Hall of Fame basketball coach George Abraham. Coach, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
What we, off the top, what we like to have our victims or our guests do is give us a little biography, a little background for those who don't know where you're from and where you went to school and how your career took
I went
place.
to Altoona High School.
Okay.
I spent my first 18 years there. Then I went to Shippensburg. That was State College at the time. It's now a university. And
yes.
After I was there, I went to Slippery Rock to help a friend of mine teach and coach for 1 year, and I was there 35. So I did leave there to coach basketball at Grove City, George Jr. and Butler, but I taught at Slippery Rock up until 1993. Then I made the complete move to Butler, teaching and coaching.
Well, you mentioned the three schools where you taught, coached in high school, and you averaged an amazing 21 wins per season throughout your career. That's just tremendous. And
We played 24 sometimes, and there were playoffs. But yeah, some years, you might have one canceled by snow or not. But more often than not, but it's the kids. We talk about this all the time.
Right.
In that Coke bottle, they always say that we're the syrup. The kids are the ingredients. If we don't have good kids, none of us is any good.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. And you have to have great assistant coaches to help you along the way. But in this area over Western PA and of course over on this side, we have just tremendous coaching in all sports, and you were a part of that.
You are exactly. I appreciate that.
I'm telling you.
No, but I can tell you, I know this. I'll watch these teams play, and someone will say, so-and-so good. He may not be good enough for Michigan State, but that team is well coached.
Yep.
And I see that over and over, all the way down to D3 hoops at Westminster. Don't kid yourself. Well, this is just proof in this tournament. Guy comes into Farley Dickinson, brings 3 Division II guys, and knocks off Purdue.
Yeah, absolutely. They outcoached them in that game.
I believe so,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a big part of it. Of course, the kids played terrific. But so you had a pair of unbeaten seasons, right? That was at Grove City and then at George
Yes,
Jr.
yes.
Talk about a little bit about each of those teams, though, that you coached and what made them special.
Well, obviously the players. We had special kids at Grove City. It was one of those teams where these kids got it. Schoolwork, getting their rest, all these things that you would think you may have to fight with young people about, you did not. These guys, this is going to sound strange, but you'll appreciate it. They have bedtimes.
Yeah.
They had grade. When there was National Honor Society, we moved practice. It was that type of. Now, George Jr., the talent was extraordinary.
Yes.
What happened at Grove City, our big center, we had a 6'7" kid who was just dominant, and he tore his knee in the first playoff game. And I honestly feel had he been healthy and played, we could have run through. And then at George Jr., we got 31 in a row. We got to the final game. We get against another team, 31-0, and kid grabs the ball off the floor and throws it in the basket. Now, we probably should have won, but they were 31-0 also, and they had a very good team, Carbondale. It was a tough game. I mean, I like to say we could or should have won, but we didn't, and I'm not going to let one game define my career.
Right, absolutely. And how about your experience at Butler?
Terrific. 2 Western Finals.
Yeah,
Once
great.
again, one game from the state championship. One of them went right to the wire. It was Ringgold. First Quad A team from the Whitfield to ever win a state title. Second time Franklin Regional, 2 overtimes, 1 point. But, the bottom line is that game is tough. When you get that far, there are no bad teams.
People don't realize
And if you thrive on your defense, where you just take the ball from the other, that's fine. But when you get to game 31, they have a point guard or they wouldn't be there.
Absolutely.
Right.
I had the good fortune to cover some of your time at George Jr. You were only there a couple seasons, but that was certainly a special time for you. And we enjoyed coming over when I was at Channel 27
Right.
doing sports there to take in some of that. What made that? That's a different scenario over there.
Right.
For those who don't know what George Jr. is about, could you explain that?
It's for delinquent and dependent youth.
Okay.
What I noticed that most people didn't know at the time, now I don't have the exact breakdown proportionally, but a lot of those kids were dependent. They just didn't have anybody, and the courts put them there. Now, very possibly one of the 2 parents not in the picture, and the other one gets arrested or something like this. I didn't have the breakdown, but they weren't all delinquents. There were many that were. I'm not going to say that, but they weren't all.
How did that add on to, if it did at all, to your responsibilities, coaching, and then you had this other element?
No,
that you had to deal
exactly,
with?
and I think that's a big thing because most of my guys at Butler, Grove City, 2-parent families or 2 parents involved. And when college came around, I've been around so long. Like I've got guys everywhere. I have guys D1, D2, D3. There's someone I can call. Now, we might not be best friends with the head coach, but we know someone on the staff, or we used to work with such and such. And, I make that call, but I would pull back because they had parents that were every bit as capable as I of making the call. George Jr., the antithesis. Most of those kids didn't have to. Some didn't even have one. You and I spoke before we got started. You guys did a nice story on us, and my big kid, I remember like it was yesterday, 1993.
Yes.
He gets up, he's 6'9", and your photographer, not meaning anything, just basically like, yikes. And he says, how tall is your father? Well, and the kid said, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and the sadness of that is great, but the fact is, I had to fill that role. And that's the important thing when it came to getting to college, getting them the right courses, getting them to go downtown for a math class or something like this. Because originally, that place wasn't set up for those kids to go to college. And we tried to do the best we could, but it was very hard. Because most of those kids hadn't been regular school attendees and such. They didn't read very well. And I always told my buddies with children, now I'm grandchildren now, but when my buddies, they said, what do you think? I said, read, and then read some more.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Because they'll like school, and if they like school, the chances of their doing well is much greater.
And having to do all that extra work that you had to do with that, I have to think that it made it more gratifying for you.
Well, absolutely. You felt needed. You know, it was one of those deals where it's like in school. If you teach somebody a concept or an idea and you see that light go on, you think, I am
right.
needed. And they're the same way, you know. Those kids needed that. You know, we need to sign you up. You need to get in the college thing, you know, to make sure that they're registered or whatever. So, yeah, you did feel needed. It was good like that.
I remember going over to cover a couple of games, and boy, the student body really rallied around that team. Man, that was something.
And we never lost there. I mean, I can't imagine coming there and beating them. It would take a Herculean effort to beat them there.
Yeah, that energy was like.
Yeah, they used to have these jugs of pennies. They would shake these milk jugs. I think they outlawed them because it was crazy. I mean, but those kids were there. You know, it gets them out a little bit. It's entertainment for the student body, so to speak. But yeah, the home floor, there was none greater.
Oh yeah, that was. I remember that. It's still a unique experience for me. What would you say your at least your initial and your overall your basic coaching philosophy is and was?
Well, I think it's ever changing. If you're worth anything, we've talked about this with the Purdue coach. I'm not a big proponent of saying we don't play zone because guess what, buddy? You're home, and this is 4 times. Maybe you should play a little zone. Strictly, it was man-to-man, face guard, full court. This is just, I wanted you uncomfortable. I went to Coach McCluskey's camps for 6-7 years. Al and I are best friends, as you know. We've been together more than 40 years with coaching and lessons and such. But I honestly felt, as simple as this sounds, I used to say to myself, what did I least like to play against? You know, some guy jumping my strong hand, some guy turning me in the backcourt, some guy up under me every step. And that's the way I tried to teach it, figuring if it was what I didn't like to play against, let's make them play that way.
It's kind of almost always a work in progress.
Absolutely. And you have to adjust.
Sure,
you know,
yeah.
You have 3, 6, 8. You're not playing as if you're center. You know, my center's a Butler, 6'1", 6'2". Well, you have to play
Different
differently.
game.
Absolutely.
Was there a coach and or coaches that you admired and maybe borrowed from in your coaching?
Honestly, I would say all of them. I would say all of them. You learned something. My junior high coach was especially successful, and learned a lot from him about the importance of winning. You know, winning the game, putting your best foot forward. And I always told my kids that. They'd say, does this count or something, one of these state tests? I said, is your name on it? Your name's on it, do your best. And I looked at that the same way. I learned from all of them, all the way up. I borrowed from, or possibly learned what not to do. I've never told this story, but I'll tell it on
Tell
here.
it, that's why we're here.
My parents got divorced my senior year. And I wasn't in a great place, and we had a new coach, and it didn't work out. I was the leading scorer the year before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the next year he comes in. Obviously, yes, wants to do things his way, add his players, whatever.
That happens. Yeah.
Well, my first year at Grove City, my point guard's parents were getting divorced too. And I think the fact that I had gone through that really helped me deal with him because I had some notion of what he was going through.
We have a lot of coaches come in, and I ask them some of the way things have changed over the years, and if they've had put some time into it. They'll, without fail, say it's the parents and social media, and those are the two things that they have to deal with.
We did not have to
You
deal
didn't have
with
that.
social media
Right,
at all.
right.
Parents, you're always going to deal with it. And I was the worst. I mean, I admit it in retrospect. I think sometimes I went out of my way being the so-called bad guy. I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want them around. I used to tease my guys. Tell them if they really want to hang out, we'll go bowling. I've yet to be bowling. You know what I mean? Or they say something, I say, listen, my mom thinks I'm a great coach. I mean, it's what good mothers and fathers do.
That's right.
I understand it. But when you're the coach, you're everybody's father, so to speak, so you can't have it. I really, even though I get asked this, what would you never last today? I said, maybe so, but I wouldn't do it differently. Because they're going to get you anyway. And I just certainly believe you cannot be friends with the parents, and because it's going to lead to questions, or once you relent once, now you're fair game for the other parents to come and say, wait a minute, so-and-so came in to see you, and now he starts.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah. Still more to come here. We're going to have to take a break, Coach, all right?
Absolutely.
And we'll be back with Coach George Abraham right here on Loose Change. Hang around.
Armstrong has been a part of the Mahoning Valley since 1974. We helped you get online with Zoom Internet. Zoom Share made wireless internet a reality. Enhanced Wi-Fi delivered coverage, security, and control of your network. Zoom Extreme brought internet speeds up to 1 gig to the community. And in 2022, Armstrong was named CableFact's Independent Operator of the Year for the 2nd time. When you support Armstrong, you're supporting your local community.
Welcome back to Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans again, along with Coach George Abraham. And Coach, we're talking about coaching and parents' involvement, and it's going to be there one way or another. But
Right.
On one hand, it's something you have to deal with, and sometimes it's a negative thing. But on the other hand, it's a positive. And you touched on this earlier, for kids to come and be fortunate enough to come from a good family unit.
Absolutely. No, it's everything. I've taken, between doing games on the radio and television, I've been at 100 senior nights. I take close notice when they introduce Dr. and Mrs. So-and-so or whomever. I'm very, very cognizant of that, because in today's world, it's more than 50% aren't together.
That's true.
Yeah, so that it's something to notice.
As you also touched on, and other coaches will say, you're out there, you're competing, the kids are learning lessons in athletics, but they take with them life lessons from participating at this level, and that's so important.
Yeah, they're numerous. They're, whether it's the teamwork, working toward a common goal, the self-discipline that you need, the giving of yourself sometimes for the benefit of the group, and the synergism when the 5 come together.
Yes.
Excuse me, nothing better.
Absolutely. You said, you mentioned, well, I wouldn't do anything different today than I did then. Maybe would that be more so about your approach as opposed to the game, a real-time game?
The game's
would you change
evolved.
your
Oh yeah. My last year at Grove City, we had the 25-0 team. That was the first year of the 3-ball. And nobody quite knew how to deal with it. We'd kick it back out on occasion. Everything was inside out. We did learn that. But it has evolved now to where the statistics say you have to shoot way more threes. And I look at it, and sometimes it's a detriment. The tournament, it's 30.6% in this tournament. That's awful.
Mm-hmm. You watch today's game at all levels, and it almost seems sometimes that the mid-range jumper is an endangered species now.
No, it's like
either taken to the rack or
the white buffalo. The mid-range is gone. They're either 3 feet, and I didn't like that shot on the line myself, even though I retired about 2001 or 2. I didn't like that. I don't want that 2.5, so to speak. If you're going to shoot that, step back half. Now everybody shoots a step back, so it's moot.
I know you still follow high school ball, or all basketball, but Is the high school game better today than?
No, not nearly.
Talk about that.
I think the cities, losing their population. We have teams across there that used to be A when it was ABC.
Yeah.
They're now 2A out of 6. The mills have closed. The railroads are down. The population is not nearly. We used to play up in Erie. You had Tech Academy and Vincent, who were all tough as nails to play. Now you have one Erie High. So no, I think as a whole, the game has suffered because of lack of population. Socioeconomic events have changed that. But yet at the same time, sometimes the fundamentals are lacking also. This idea that you need a 3 every time down and such has really changed the game.
Are the kids maybe better athletes today?
Better athletes. Now, once again,
that doesn't mean better basketball
Exactly.
players.
We get the same thing with baseball. Can they run faster, jump higher? Yes. Can they run the bases? Can they hit the cutoff man? Can they make the right play? God forbid you'd ever choke up and slap the ball to right field. Now, without the shift, that may change again. But up until this year, everybody's interested in statistics, And then their agents go in. I have a friend that's an NFL agent. They want numbers. They go in there with numbers. They go in, and he's Kelsey's agent, for example. They'll send 5 lawyers in there, and they'll say, he had this many catches, this many yards. They don't want to hear, well, he blocked well on. It's not important. Now, it is to the coach, but it's not to the statisticians, so to speak. Those algorithms that they throw in. I still to this day think if I could have Shaq with 15 dunks, I have to think that'd make it easier to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have a kid that played for me. We argue all the time about, statistics, and I call them pocket protectors. These guys are making policy. They have no idea. It's like this tournament. Pitt was no play-in team. Now, they weren't top 5, but they weren't 44 either. You know what I mean? They proved it by winning the first game. And that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes we're getting away from quote-unquote basketball people or baseball people, and we're getting into the raw numbers. And the raw numbers, some guys can't make a free throw under pressure. That's not in there.
In the analytics.
Absolutely.
The analytics department.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's an element that they can't factor in.
It's in
what
here.
You just said, exactly.
No, and the coach, if you coach 30, I have a guy, I know his foul shot percentage might not be the highest, but I know if I need a one-on-one, I would put him at the line, and that's what you're talking about.
I'm okay with the analytics, to be involved. But another thing too is, and you being a coach with Census, there's also the feel and the emotion of the game and the ebb and flow, and you could see body language and your guys, their guys, and that's something that you can only have from your perspective.
You have to have good people. These, because there's one ball, 5 guys. Mathematics tells you someone's got to screen, someone's got to get to the boards, and a lot of times, when they're hearing at home, why don't you shoot more, Junior? You don't get enough shots. The coach is on it, and now you have problems.
Yeah. High school sports, it's almost in a lot of ways, it's a year-round endeavor now. Are the players better? Well, you said technique a lot of time maybe isn't their fundamentals, but overall, is because it's a year-round thing that you see athletes are better.
The better players are better.
Okay, that's great.
In other words, like when they have that basketball camp somewhere, whether it be the old 5-star or whatever, the better players are, because that's where the big coaches are there to see and such.
Yeah.
But the average player, as you say, a small school like McDonald, they have to play everything. They don't have the luxury of having 15 different guys for basketball, 35 for, it's the same guys. And we're missing that because of this year-round approach. They're making kids make choices. And it's really not fair. And I don't think it develops them. A good friend of mine is the strength coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and he thinks you should play everything just for that competitive spirit alone, the training of the muscles, etc. And we're missing that today. The kids are specializing at age 9. It's too soon.
You mentioned during the break your involvement with Coach Campen and doing clinics and that type of thing. Talk about that.
We did it we met in about 84, 85. We're going on 40 years, and we hit it off right away. We were out of camp, and we said, we can replicate this camp ourselves. So we started with these. We'd have team camps down at Elwood that any game would be a Western final in PA or Ohio. You'd have East Liverpool playing Kennedy Catholic, or you'd have Newcastle playing Blackhawk. You can't see that game in March. So we did that, and then we branched out into clinics, and we just were giving individual lessons 4 and 5 times a week. It was amazing. We had a great run, a lot of good players. I think we had nearly 30 either 1,000-point scorers or full scholarship players or both. So we had our share of really good kids. And they worked, as you say, but once again, there's some parental involvement there because they have to have the wherewithal to afford it. Absolutely.
Right. If it weren't basketball, would there have been another sport that you would have?
Yeah, but
coached?
I was a decent baseball player young, and I specialized rather young myself. When I was in Altoona, there were 3 junior highs. So you had to be good when you got to the varsity to take your turn, so to speak. You know, our football had 120. They had a JV with a 10-game schedule, a B team with a 10-game schedule, and a varsity. So you weren't just walking on out there and taking over by any means.
We also touched on before we got going here about Youngstown State. And I know you and Coach Al talk about YSU and what a terrific job they both coaches and their staffs and the kids put forth this year. It was really great.
Yeah, it was a
men's
great
and
year.
women's.
Absolutely. The women have been exceptional for years.
Yes.
They're just getting it going with the guys. The great season. I mean, could have won that Oklahoma State game, and Oklahoma State won easy the next game.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, and what has changed is there's no building anymore. Like, basically, you have to go to the portal and get 3-4 new guys. And this is going to happen again, I guess, at Pitt, I guess at Youngstown, Duquesne. These guys are all basically bringing in 3 and 4 new guys every year. And that's a hit or miss. That isn't good for building, so to speak, but it sure makes every year,
For the moment.
and more exciting, because if you miss, now you got problems. But if you hit, like Youngstown hit, Pitt hit, Duquesne, they had great years.
It's becoming a business, or
It
it
is
has been for a while.
Yeah, it was undercover before. Now it's out in the open.
Now it's really is.
Yeah.
You know, along with the transfer portal, we talked about the NCAA tournament, and we don't see that dominant program every year like we had at one time because of that, and kids leaving, to turn professional as well. So it's kind of opened things up, and it's anybody's tournament now.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody stays. Imagine in the old days, you're thinking, we got to play Ralph Sampson.
Yeah.
I was talking, great story. We were over at Hoover giving a lesson, and Todd Blackledge was the assistant at the time to Randy Montgomery. And we were talking to Todd on the side. He said, I played basketball. He said, I was pretty good. He said, then I went to 5-star and played against Ralph Sampson. He said, I knew at that point I was playing football.
That's right.
And this is what, you're dealing with. The great guys aren't staying. They're one and done. So that's going to be forever unless they change that rule.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Who knows more about sports? You or Coach Al?
Oh, me. It's not even close. No, I'm teasing. He knows a lot. He follows it closely. He has done so forever. But, yeah, it's a mutual thing. We kind of help feed off each other.
Sure.
And that's the idea.
Well, hey, it's certainly great to have you here and talk a little bit. And what a wonderful career you've had, and it's really great you're involved here at Armstrong. Thank you, Coach Al, and great to see you. And best of luck with the show.
Appreciate
Coach,
it. Thank you.
Thanks. George Abraham, everybody, and we'll be back to wrap it up right after this.
Supercharge your internet. Only Zoom Extreme from Armstrong combines unlimited data with whole home Wi-Fi at the fastest speeds possible. Zoom Extreme from Armstrong.
That's going to do it for our show, and I want to say thanks so much again to PA Basketball Hall of Fame coach George Abraham, and of course co-host of Bottom Line Sports right here on Armstrong. Check it out. Thanks as always to Greg Roten and to all of you, and we'll catch you next time right here on Loose Change. Come on.